Does identity matter? What are your team's pronouns? Let's talk about it here in Below the Belt, which is sponsored by D&M Leasing and Window Nation. Stephen Jones did his final interview of the season with G-Bag Nation on Friday, and they were asking him, obviously this was before the move had been made to move on from Matt Eberflus, so a lot of the discussions were about, hey, what are you guys thinking for the future, and doing different things like that. And when they were asked about the objective for defense in the upcoming year, Stephen Jones said, we've got to get an identity on the defensive side of the football. I don't think we've ever established what we were as a defense. We really weren't a team that created turnovers. We didn't get the ball. We gave up a lot of explosive plays. At times it felt like we were stopping the run, but we just got a lot of work to do on that side of the ball. I think everybody knows that. We'll go all in. All in again. So we went all in again on that side. But
that's not what I just said.
So this has always been one of the funniest things. If you ever want to trigger Broadus, then just ask him about, like, hey, what do you think the identity of the team is? And he gets so irrationally angry.
Why?
Because Ari Temkin used to ask him that on the postgame show every week, and Brian would tell him every week, he's like, what is an identity? A team identity is not a thing. He just would lose his mind.
I would fight with Broadus over that.
You should, because he will lose his mind about it. But Ari would forget that and ask him every week, what about the identity? And Broadus would snap. And so
why would he dismiss identity?
He doesn't think it's a real thing. He doesn't think he thinks either identity, you're good or you're not. That's kind of his thing.
Okay.
And that instead he's just there's no.
So in the draft room, Will McClay doesn't go in there and tell Broadus and others, these are the top 3 characteristics that we want in our players. That, to me, is an identity.
So I think Broadus would probably say those are traits, those are individual traits, and that collectively it's nothing. These are your preferences, but you don't go I am a. No, I think he is talking more about
because Jason Garrett, McCarthy, they always, for some reason, ran scared of this question. Okay, this is what we want our team to be, and they refuse to answer it. I always had a major problem with it.
So, and there are a lot of people in football who do believe in the identity. That Steven just used it, Shoddy's used it. There are a lot of people like Brian who think it's ridiculous to talk about identity. That identity is not a real thing. You either are good or you're not, and you just have these things that you do. So that's something that when you look at this and you try to figure out, I started thinking back on.
Now, I will say this. A lot of times identity is repeated as the same thing. What does everyone want to be as a football team? We want to be tough.
Yeah.
We want to be physical. It's the same crap that's recycled a lot of times.
Yeah,
but there are high-flying finesse teams. Now, no one would ever admit to being finesse, but our identity is big plays.
Which I don't think that's a bad thing, being a finesse
is just
team.
A bad. Well, it's not. It's not looked upon as great.
It's got a negative connotation to it, but I think it's
give me a positive finesse football team. I think of the Rams. Yeah, with Marshall Faulk.
Yeah,
I think
they won a Super Bowl.
But then people say they got beat up. Line of scrimmage, New England, the Buffalo Bills.
The two teams that gave even the Titans did give them problems in the Super Bowl because the Titans were a tough team.
Yeah. I mean that happens. I think finesse football teams are similar to if I was to think I think a better the team I think of when I think of a finesse team in sports is the 7 seconds or less Suns.
Yep,
that's who I think of.
Yep,
and so that's a team that you can compete at a high level. People
wonder with Dirk and Nash and Finley, high flying, or you beat them up inside.
So that's the thing is that finesse. It's funny because when you say finesse versus you say tough. When you say tough, I think people, some of the other things they think on the periphery are probably okay, you don't score very much. You're probably an uglier version of play. But there's no negative, it doesn't sound like a character indictment to say that you don't score a lot of points because you're tough.
Right, like the
finesse,
old Miami Heat team.
Yeah, finesse, you could score.
Yep.
But it sounds like
you're fun.
It sounds like a character indictment, you're soft, you're weak.
Soft, yeah.
When in reality, I think finesse is just a strategy. It's a way you want to play with your personnel. Or
the Showtime Lakers, right? Boston was tough, and Showtime was flashy.
Yeah, and Showtime one more time.
Pass and fast break.
They were finesse. They were soft. They were flashy. They dribbled so well with just one hand.
I knew that was coming.
I need to write down your top 10 takes that you repeat, and you need to come up with some new material.
Oh, baby.
I can go to your top 10 stuff. I'm going to do that.
Have you seen a great comic?
We need to come up with 2 lists and see how many we cross over on. And see if we
can match his.
The ones that cross over are the ones that he really does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the one. All right, so
I'm going to start writing them right now.
This is definitely This is something that I think before Steven even said this, I definitely felt like the Cowboys were wanting to shift from this. So if you've looked at in recent history, I think they want to pick a coordinator right now who's got a calling card. Like there's something they're known for. Like whenever they say Brian Flores, you know what Brian Flores is. Like it triggers certain thoughts in your head. Whenever people used to talk about Jim Schwartz or Jim Johnson from the Eagles, either one of them, it's like, oh my gosh, blitzing, they're all in your face.
Fangio, Spagnuolo.
Back in the day, the Seattle defenses, the Legion of Boom, it was like, oh yeah, it's that cover 3 and that physical like press style, and like there are certain things that are connected to that. Flores is the blitzing guy. Fangio, he's the scheme disguise guy. Mike Zimmer, he's all about the sim pressures. Dan Quinn is press cover 3. Even Rod Marinelli, when he was here, he was a very clear cover 2, like Tampa 2, get the defensive lineman up the field. Like everybody knows the system, knows the scheme. Matt Eberflus was a 3-4 outside linebackers or 3-4 linebackers coach for Rob Ryan in Cleveland. And then he ended up here, and Rob Ryan and Rod Marinelli are two so ridiculously, like, diametrically opposed perspectives on how to attack an offense. And Matt Eberflus came up with Rob Ryan and then was kind of molded by Rod Marinelli. So he's got some weird inconsistencies that don't totally match Marinelli, don't totally match Rob Ryan, but have kind of both of them. It definitely trends more towards Marinelli, but he ends up with this kind of like identityless style of defense.
He's really a 3-4 guy?
That's where he initially started, 3-4 linebacker coach. And then he, under Marinelli, had transitioned. Because 3-4, you got to think, the most important part of Matt Eberflus's defense, according to him, was the 3-technique defensive tackle. The 3-technique defensive tackle does not exist in the 3-4, which is where he started and was a linebacker. And by the end of it, that was the most important position to him. And so it created kind of like an unholy mishmash. You remember Kellen Moore used to get the joystick criticism for this.
Michael Lombardi.
Where people were like, Broadus used to feel this way about him. He designs plays. He doesn't have a philosophy. It's just a collection of plays, and it doesn't feel like it's building towards anything.
Man, it's funny. I'll never forget how offended so many Cowboy fans were when they switched to the 3-4.
Oh, yeah, it was a big deal.
They felt insulted because Landry invented the 4-3. And they're just like, how dare you, Bill Parcells, make this a 3-4-T? I was like, boy, commitment to a scheme.
Yeah.
The fan base.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big deal. Well, and I mean, yeah, I get the Landry aspect of it, though, because, like, you got to remember when that happened, that was still 14 years after Landry was fired. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people to them, they go in their head like, oh, just the last thing. One more thing. We've never been a 3-4 team in the history of this organization. Now you're going to just wipe his memory away. But the last coordinator they had before Eberflus, who was similarly, there is no identity here, was Mike Nolan. Mike Zimmer had a philosophy, a very clear philosophy, what he liked to do. Quinn was the same way. They'll adjust to certain things. Dan Quinn played more man coverage in Dallas than he ever did at any time in his career because Dan was the thing that Dan deserves the most credit for is he absolutely walked the walk and talked the talk when it came to the discussion of molding your scheme to your players. Because Dan Quinn did a ton of things with players that he never would have done in Seattle or Atlanta or anywhere else that showed, okay, he recognizes this is what I've got. I can't do certain things that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Mike Nolan was somebody who I remember the year after, somebody who was on that staff with Mike Nolan had said to me, and it was an offensive coach, but they're like, I've been in like football for several years. Like I've been around, Mike Nolan's been around most of the time that I've been around here. He goes, I've never known an offensive coach who's been afraid of Mike Nolan.
Damn.
He's like, nobody has ever thought about, like, how are we going to respond to his scheme?
Dang.
We've been worried about his players, if he's had a good collection, but nobody has ever been like, God, we can't handle this Peyton Russell chess match with him. We're just not going to be able to hang.
I'm playing a guy right now, playing polo.
We're not going to be able to hang. So I think that to them, that's a clear and concise thing that they want. But I think it's also going to be, as I kind of described on Twitter yesterday, I think I said it on the air too, they're going to go buffet style shopping a little bit. So I think that they're going to look at things and go, all right, what are the things we know we want? Well, we want somebody in here who's going to believe in press man a little bit more. All right. And so we need Savone Revel because that's what he's good at. We need to be able to use Savon Revel because that guy's 1 year into his career. We just invested a bunch of capital. He has to be one of the important pieces in the corner group, so somebody needs to be willing to do that with him. I think they're going to come in here and go, if we don't have the edge rushers, we need somebody who believes in blitzing and who will come in here and actually do that for us. And if we have deficient personnel, we need somebody who's going to disguise coverages and roll. Oh, it looks like cover 3. We're rolling into cover 4. We're doing these things. So I think when they go down those line items, they're just going to take that to somebody and say, I need whatever your identity is, I need it to look like this. You need to do whatever else you want around it, but it's got to be this. It's got to be these things. And I think if you look at some of the names we've seen so far, Ulbrich, Flores, Jonathan Gannon, they all kind of check those boxes.